Welcome to another episode of Life and Whiskey. As always, I'm Jordan, and today I am going to continue on with what I had started before. I did some bourbon and rye recommendations. I'm going to finish up with Scotch, and I have a plethora of Scotch. I think Scotch, it might be, a third of my collection or so. I got a lot. And the recommendations that I want to try and make for you are things that are going to be obtainable and things that aren't necessarily expensive. Yes, of course, I got, several bottles that are over $100 or even above like $50 or $60. And the heart of my collection is in the Isla domain, heavily, peated whiskeys. That's what I really particularly like. I do not have hardly anything in the Highlands collections. I have not really found a Highlands distillery that I am in love with, and I have not had a Campbelltown yet, I don't believe. Some Speyside, I like Speyside, I like Isla. Lowlands, I got two Lowlands, I like those. But Highlands tend to be too fruity, too wine or brandy-esque for me. I know that there's, I don't know, something like 90 distilleries or something like that. So I know I have not touched on them all. I know that there's definitely some peated ones out there and whatever else. But I tend, if I'm taking a gamble, if I'm taking a chance, and I am putting my money out there, I'm not trying it on a whiskey that's coming from the Highlands. Because I like the other stuff more. Now to say that, like here's a Speyside, Glenkinchie, this is a Lowland. I got stuff from all over the place. The Speyburns, the Speyside. And I do, if you go back and look through my reviews, I've had several Highlands. But here's what I'm going to say. So I think there's good Scotch to be had for under $50. It does not necessarily have to be a single malt Scotch. I think, though, that you are best suited if you stick with either a single malt or a blended malt. If you get blended Scotch typically has a large portion of grain whiskey in it. And to me, I get that metallic flavor. It's sharp. And to me, I can smell it and taste it every single time. I've not found a whiskey yet that was a blended Scotch that I was unable to pick out the grain alcohol in it. So I choose to veer away from that, and I'm sticking with just blended malts and single malts. So, start things off with a couple of things that you can probably readily pick up. Monkey shoulder, you should be able to pick up. Prices have gone up on it, but I still see it for like $26.50, $27 here locally. So somewhere between $25 and $35. Monkey shoulder, it's a blend of three different Speysides. It's very butterscotchy. It has a nice malt component to it. So like if you've ever eaten a malted milk ball, you kind of get that malty, grainy, sweet. Some people say it has a little bit of a funkiness to it, but I still like it a lot. Huge fan of it. Cheap, good, sweet, delicious. So if you like sweet whiskey, Monkey Shoulder, definitely check that one out. Naked Grouse, I really just love the bottle, kind of like the Wild Turkey. It has the grouse embossed on the glass. It's really nice, super clean, but it is blended malt, 43%. It's just a really nice, good Scotch, in my opinion. These are good entries. They're not very expensive. I think Naked Grouse comes in at, I don't know, like 20 something dollars. See if I can find it here in my list. So, so Naked Grouse is $24.39 here locally. Also, Famous Grouse, Smoky Black. I liked that one. That was $30.99. And I don't have the bottles for them because I unfortunately threw them away. Black bottle. Really good light entry into a peated whiskey. $33.99. I couldn't find it locally. I think I might have found that one in Montana. Go watch that review. I really, really liked Black Bottle. I liked it so much I finished it rather quickly. And Copper Dog, which might be, I'm not sure if that's a blended Scotch or a blended single malt. Let me see if I got it here. It says blended malt. So a blended malt. And that one was $24.79. Again, I think I picked that one up locally. those are all really good entries into the lower tier. So a step up, if you go back and watch my whiskey under $10, I had 3 scotches that were in there. Those were blended whiskeys, and so they had that grain alcohol component. They're pretty cheap, not bad, but I think you can do better by adding another $5 or $10 onto the mix and picking up the Monkey Shoulder or Naked Grouse or the Black Bottle or Copper Dog. Also, I will throw in there, now these are more expensive locally, but I've seen them for $17 a piece, but the McClellans or McLelands, or yeah, I'll call it McClellans. So they have, I've only been able to find an Isla, a Highland, and a Lowland, and all 3 of them were extremely good. I am a huge fan. You've heard me talk about many times the Isla. In fact, I got a 175 upstairs that I bought for like $38 in Casper. It's good. It's young. It's probably 4 years or 3 years old, so it's really young, but it's a good representation of Isla. It's easy drinking. Like I said, I bought a regular bottle for $17 one time. Same with the Highland. Now, it was okay. It's probably a fair representation of Highlands, and probably, actually, in my opinion, one of the better Highlands I've had. And the Lowlands was my first dip into the Lowlands. It's an interesting peated whiskey that drinks very different than an Isla peated whiskey. I don't remember whether or not this Lowland was peated, but I say the peated whiskey because this Glenkinchie is my other Lowland that I picked up. Now this one is more expensive, but yeah, McClellans, if you find them, anything under, around here, they're like $32, $33. That's way too expensive. You can find it in the teens or the 20s. Highly encourage you to pick them up. See what you think of them. I think you'll be very, very happy with them. This Glenkinchie, while we're on Lowlands, now I did pay a fair bit more for that. That was, so this was $62. Fairly expensive, but the only other Lowland I've ever found locally. And oftentimes when I'm out looking around, I'm not necessarily looking at the Lowland section specifically, so I've probably glassed over way more than I should. But this Glenkinchie 12, really, really good. Like I said, it has a nice peat smoke to it that's very different. It's more swampy, more boggy, more earthy, more lowlandy, if you want, than the Isla. And I just really, really enjoy it a lot. So check that one out. But again, a little bit more pricey, $62. Sticking with some cheaper whiskeys here. I picked all these up at Total Wines, and I will read them off quickly and tell you what the prices are. Now, these are all Islas. Man, were they good. Now, they're all, okay, this is a single malt. This Scarbus is a single malt. So, single malt, blended malt, and a single malt. So, there you go. So, all those are single malts. The Isla, which was a Smoky Joe, was a blended malt, and I picked them up because they were relatively cheap. Here we go. So the Scarbus was $29.99, or Scarbus, $29.99. Smoky Joe was $36.99. The Shield Egg, I don't know how to pronounce that. I know I'm slaughtering that. Was really cheap, $21.99, and the Isla Gold was $36.99. So all of them under $40, mostly in the 20s. I have zero complaints about any of these. If you're into Isla whiskeys and you want a cheap alternative to like the Ardbeg or the Ardbeg, the Lafroig, the Lagavulin, those are kind of like the 3 main lineups that are easier to find. I got some Bunnahabhains, tons of others. But if you want good, cheap Isla whiskey, definitely check these out. I really, really like them. They all have great flavors. They have a lot of sweeter notes mixed in with that nice peat smoke. Excellent, excellent whiskeys. Definitely check them out. So I'd recommend those. So what I'm trying to do with this is recommend things that you maybe don't necessarily, you're either not like as familiar with. So such as the Lagavulin, the Lafroig, the Ardbeg. Everybody's pretty familiar with those. Everybody's pretty familiar with Bunnahabhain or the Kilchoman or Kilchoman. Oh, Talisker. That's another one. That's on a different Isla. That's on the Isle of Skye instead of Isla. That's a really excellent distillery. Check out their products. A little more pricey. So Yeah, definitely. Talisker's fairly well known though, but check out Talisker. If you can't go wrong with Talisker, you can't go wrong with Lagavulin, you can't go wrong with Ardbeg, you can't go wrong with Laphroaig. Any of their lineups, I have no bad words to say about any of them. You could pour me a dram of those any day of the week. I'd be extremely happy to drink it. So these are things that maybe you haven't heard of, or maybe you've heard of them, and they're just, you never really paid much attention to them. That's what I'm trying to highlight here. Now this Jura, it's another island whiskey. It's from the Isle of Jura. They have many different varieties. This one was the first one that I found, and I did find it locally. It's a 10-year-old. I have to say it's $48.79 here locally. I have to say it's not my favorite. Watch my review of this one, because if it appeals to you, then it's definitely worth checking out. I just was underwhelmed. It's not bad. In fact, I took a sip of it before I started this video just to kind of refresh my memory. It's sweet, but it's simple, and there's not anything mind-blowing or different about it, and it doesn't lean into that peat smoke really, the way that I like things. So it just was not a bad whiskey. It's just not what I'm reaching for. But if you like a nice simple whiskey, you know what? There's nothing wrong with it. It's just not topping my list. But I got it up here because it might appeal to some people. Along with that, Bunnahabhain. A huge fan of Bunnahabhain. In fact, so much so that our next dog's going to be named Bunnahabhain, and my 2-year-old already says, "Oh, our dog's name's going to be Bunnahabhain." So already aware of that. So this Bunnahabhain, the Sturader, I slaughter Gaelic stuff, but the Sturader, it's fairly reasonably priced. It's $48. Not a bad price. It's younger, but really good. Not really peated. Same with their 12. Their Bunnahabhain 12 is really good. And they also are what is in black bottle, which is why I like the black bottle so much. But this 12 is $60. It's a 12-year. It's really, really nice. But if I'm going to buy another Bunnahabhain, it's going to be another one of these Totich Ada or whatever. I am slaughtering this, but if this one with the smoke, it's a smoky one. It is so good. Huge fan of that. But Bunnahabhain, as a distillery, they have peated and non-peated whiskeys. Bunnahabhain is really nice. It's an Islay distillery, but you can find stuff for a reasonable price. Very good representation, just very good, nice whiskey, whether you like peated or unpeated Scotch. So if you're not aware of it, they got really nice bottles and labels, and just good drinking whiskey. Another one that's interesting, but you gotta like the flavor profile. Well, Dalwhinnie. If you can find a Dalwhinnie, that's a good one too. I was looking up the wrong thing. The Highland Park. Now, Highland Park is good, but you gotta like something that has a lot of malty flavor to it. So this Highland Park Magnus that I have, it's $34.49 here locally. So really, really reasonably priced. They got nice bottles. I also have a cask strength, but both I only got the 2 bottles, but I got this in the cask strength, and not really peated, fruity, but very, very heavily malted flavor profile. So you like that maltiness in your whiskey. It's and I don't to describe malt is very difficult. Like I said, that malted milk ball, like a Whopper, it's kind of that flavor mixed with a little bit of grain. So there's like a sweet component, a grainy breadiness to it, and then just a little bit of a, I'm going to use the word funk, but it's a little bit of something in there that's, once you pick it out, or once you're familiar with what it is, you'll go, oh yeah, and you can distinguish it very easily. But I find it a lot in the Highland Park. So that is, it's a good whiskey. And like I said, this one, what did I say, $34.49? For this Magnus. A good, reasonable price whiskey. If you like that malty flavor, it's in there. It's also in that monkey shoulder. But if you find that you're really liking that note, that flavor component, pick one up, give it a try. Totally worth it. Next, we have Speyburn. So this Speyburn 10-year, you can pick this up pretty much anywhere. It's a Speyside. Now, to me, almost all Speysides bring this butterscotchy, briny note that's pretty prevalent. Butterscotch for sure. The brininess, man. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. Sometimes they put peat in there, sometimes not. I don't remember much. So check out my video on this Speyburn. I remember it being just kind of a nice whiskey. Nothing mind blowing, but just nice. Matured for 10 years, ex bourbon cask and ex sherry. Rich sweetness of the region. So it's proof down to the floor, so it's 80%. Let's give one of those a go. Very butterscotchy. Really mild. Couple of notes in there besides the butterscotchiness, but sweet, grainy, malty. Very similar to the Magnus, but the Magnus has a little more proofy bitiness to it. This one was a little bit more watery, I'll say, as far as the density of the flavor profile. It's not watery. It's not like there's nothing there. It's just less dense of a flavor profile. Really nice. The reason I put that one up there is because, again, it's not super expensive at $28.99. It's a nice whiskey for in the middle. Again, if you like sweeter notes, one to check out. And then the last two here that I have a Ben Romick, yet another Speyside, another 10-year Speyside. Kind of falls right in suit with all those other ones. That one's a little bit more expensive, not terrible. That one was, well, okay, $53.99, so a fair bit more. So again, 10-year whiskey, $30 more or $20 more. You can make the call on that one. But it's pretty good. And then finally, one that I do really enjoy, this Balvenie. It's a single malt Balvenie Malt Masters, matured in 2 distinct casks. So this Balvenie Doublewood, like I was saying in my bourbon and rye videos, my wife and I have really gotten into double cask, double matured, sherry, port finish, like finished whiskeys. So this Balvenie Doublewood just is a nice, good, sweet, finished whiskey, double cast, acquires its complex yet rich and smooth flavor from its maturation in 2 different types of oak casks, whiskey oak and sherry oak. So that sherry brings a lot of the dark fruit notes that I really enjoy. Big plum, that kind of stuff. Bourbon cask, you get those sweet vanillas, caramels, and it's just a really, really nice one. Now, this one's a little bit more expensive than all the others that I've been talking about. Let me find it here for you. Give you the exact price on it. Doublewood 12, so it's a Doublewood 12-year, $58.09. We also have the Week of Peat. That one was way more expensive. That was $114. It's a little bit of a special release. It's really nice, but it's not $114 nice. That one should ring in maybe that $70 or $80 category. But Balvenie just makes really nice whiskey. And if you want to do yourself a favor, if you can find this Doublewood for, I'd say anything less than 60, give it a go. Totally worth it. So there you go. There's my over under on scotches that I think are a little bit cheaper, a little bit more penny wise, that aren't the big mainstay categories, or not categories, distilleries that I think you would really, really enjoy. If you like any of these, check out some of the main lines if you're not already familiar with. And you can start if you like, I don't know, my very first Isla whiskey, my very first peated whiskey was Lagavulin 16. My wife bought me a bottle for my birthday, and because we had just got done watching Parks and Rec recently, maybe 2 years ago. And I'd never had peated whiskey, and my mind was blown, and I haven't looked back since. Lagavulin 16 is excellent. I have found it as cheap as $66 at the Total Wine just outside Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Here locally, it's about $100. $100 is pretty standard anywhere you go. Total Wine does have a reasonable price on it. I can find it at the cheapest liquor store here in town for like $92, I think, something like that. Any of the Nick Offerman editions, I'd never got to try the first release, but the second release was excellent. That's the Guinness cask, and then now I have to do the review of it yet, of the bourbon. Is it bourbon cask or just oak cask? Charred oak. I think it's just charred American oak. I've tried it. It's excellent. I'll do the review of that coming up though. But Try those. You can start with like the Ardbeg Wee Beastie or the Lagavulin 8. You can also go with the Lafroig 10 or the quarter cask or the select cask. They're all good. You know, it's just a matter of whether you want to jump into the deep end of the pool when it comes to peat. Now, me personally, I have not found a whiskey that was too smoky, too peaty, like just blew my palate out and wouldn't allow me to taste anything else. In fact, normally when I drink a peated whiskey, whether it's Scotch or Irish, it tends to be that by the second or third sip, I'm so acclimated to that peat that even when I'm nosing it, the peat's complete. The smoke is gone. The smoke is gone from my drink when I take the sip, and I'm hitting all those sweet mid notes that get covered up by that smoke on the first or second sip. So for me, my experience with peated whiskey is I really, really enjoy it. It's there to start with, and then the depth of flavor really comes out for the rest of my drinking experience through that whiskey. So if I'm drinking it over a half hour, it really changes up. The complexity really comes out. And because of that, I've fallen in love with peated whiskeys. It's so much so, even this Connemara peated Irish, check that out. That one I found for like 40 something bucks. Totally reasonable. Drinks nice like an Irish with a good amount of peat in it. Not overbearing. It's really easy drinking. That might be a good entryway to get into peated whiskey as well. So there you go. There's all the whiskeys I recommend checking out if you haven't already. If you're not already in the deep end of Scotch, where you're spending 50 to 150, 200, $300 a bottle. If you want something a little more reasonably priced, but yet get really good flavor, check out any of these. I think you can't go wrong with any of them. And drop in the comments down below what you think. If there's a bottle I missed that I should have included, throw that in the comments as well. I'd love to hear what you have to say. Thanks for watching. You guys have yourselves a great day. I'm going to dive into a whiskey review here, so I got some material for things coming up. You guys have a great day, and we'll catch you in the next video.